Hello, civilized people. It has been 1 month since the last time we posted a video. Who would have imagined that in the world of political and business consulting, that election seasons might be busy? Now, you may be thinking to yourself that you are suffering from election season burnout. And you are absolutely right. You are. But there is good news. In just 2 weeks' time, election season will finally be over. You'll be able to listen to the radio, watch a YouTube video, or turn on the TV without some asshole insisting that you vote for them because reasons. And I and my professional colleagues will finally be able to swear off politics entirely, curse the day we got into the industry to begin with, get a good night's sleep, spend time with family, until a couple years pass, the trauma fades, and we think to ourselves, well, it wasn't really that bad. And we throw ourselves back at it with hopeless optimism that this time things will be different. People say if you love your job, you will never work a day in your life. Those people are full of shit. So ignore what the pundits say, disregard the whores in three-piece suits that the mainstream media parades onto their shows to lend their stupidity credibility, and make peace with the fact that CNN, CBS, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, Fox, BBC, and even PBS have less credibility combined than a naked man walking the interstate raving about how the end is near. As today, on the Goss and Rome podcast, we are going to discuss the plays of the respective presidential campaigns and the effects they have had upon the race, as well as giving our first electoral predictions for the 2024 presidential contest. So, Colt, how you doing today, man?
I'm all right. How about yourself?
I'm upright and breathing. God, it's nice that this is almost over.
Mm-hmm.
The worst is yet to come.
Oh yeah,
But
it's always the last little bit where it's the most stressful and you have the most work, and donors are the most demanding.
they are. And you know, it almost feels like I describe this industry as kind of like an abusive relationship. It's kind of a fair analogy.
And we just keep coming back because it's
I
all we
know.
know,
It's like an addiction, man.
and nothing else hits quite right, quite like it. Like
That is the truth. Probably one of the most interesting aspects of this job is that it's very much, I guess, it's kind of like a sport. Uh, you have a very large window to play a game, and at the end, there's a very clear winner and a very clear loser. And you can manipulate a lot of things, and it's if you like if you like generally just trying to outsmart people, it's a very good career. If you don't mind, being at the beck and call of a lot of people with unwarranted senses of self-importance.
I'd say the most similar industry is maybe working in the staff of a sports team.
Probably. As crazy as it is, you are probably right. So, we're I guess we're going to break down how we're going to do this. We're going to discuss some topics that have been fairly visible or that have, you know, been made to some extent visible. Then we're going to discuss a couple topics that are behind the scenes that aren't being broadcast quite so loudly. And then where we've got, results starting to come in, we're going to touch on that. Not so much as what the who is actually who's voted for what, but you have early voting a lot of places that has already started. You have mail-in voting that has already started, and you are starting to see a some very surprising trends this year. And we're also going to give our prediction well, it's still an early prediction. Obviously, this will change before election season. Well, not election season, but election day. And, just to sort of see how that holds up for the next 2 weeks. So, Colton, for visible topics, let's start off probably with the oldest one on this list, which is the VP debate. Walls versus, Vance. Thoughts?
Um, it was entertaining when it happened, but time has a way of making all things sort of irrelevant.
Mm. Yeah, I've, Lord, every president has had, everybody in politics at some point has said something stupid unintentionally. And, I mean, you had Bushisms just in how he would pronounce things funny. And Joe Biden is basically a walking gaff machine. And that's actually, I think Obama was the one who said that. You know, the thing, all that stuff. He just forgets what he's talking about. Hell, at one point, Trump said that whenever the colonials and the British were fighting in the Revolution, the first thing the British did was seize the fucking airports, because clearly that was a thing. He was obviously trying to say ports, but
Hmm.
though I don't think any of them are quite as bizarre as Walls saying that he had made friends with school shooters.
I don't know. I think corn pop's pretty weird. Corn
corn
pop is a
pop,
lasting meme.
corn pop endures.
Yeah, I mean, as much as that was a bad gaff, it's already dead and that hasn't affected anything. So
I mean, another one that still seems to cling around is Joe Biden saying we have the largest scale voter fraud organization in the country. It's like, wow, shouldn't say that probably, but yeah. So, do you think that the VP debate moved the needle at all?
no,
I don't think it really moved the needle either. If I'm being honest, VP debates don't really have an effect. I think that if anything, and feel free to, you know, cite a different opinion if you think so on this. But you've had a lot of people that are very reluctant to vote for Kamala and to vote for Trump. Both of them have their negatives. I think, and these are people who are probably going to vote for them anyway. I think that for a lot of the people that were on the fence about Trump, they didn't like Trump, but they were probably going to vote for him anyway. This just served as, a green light of, okay, this is my permission slip to vote for him now, just because Vance carried himself reasonably well. You know,
I guess I can see
I
that. I
don't, I don't
guess
think I don't think it moved the needle.
no.
I think it just sort of, brought the some of the outstanding folks back into the fold a little earlier rather than later. You know,
Hmm.
which I think that can have an effect on some things, but I don't think it's a huge effect. Though you, you you know things are bad whenever the mainstream media is conceding that a Republican won a debate outside of Fox News. So Walls didn't. I don't think Walls had a really outstanding performance,
No, not really.
and I don't think he's really helping Kamala's ticket as much as she thought he would.
I really think that whoever was her first pick turned her down.
That's well known. She apparently reached out to about quite a few people ahead of it. I have heard the number going up to about 12 that she had reached out to, and most of them regarded it as career suicide. And that's from people that's what I've heard from people that work devotedly for the Democratic Party. So I work with both sides. I don't really care. I try not to. I like money. I got a family to feed. But so yeah, VP debate by and large bust. I don't think it had a measurable impact. Although I am curious, do you think that if Trump wins, do you think that his performance in that debate will give him any sort of advantage if he decides to run for presidency in 28?
Um, I think it would help him in the next Republican primary. I don't think it would help him in the next election.
Well, well, getting the nomination is what I mean. Do you
It
think that it
depends
is?
on who's on stage. I mean, if it's more like people like Nikki Haley or whatever, then yes. If it's like, against say a DeSantis, Vivek again, and like I don't know, throwing this out of nowhere just because like randomly like RFK Jr.
Mm,
Like if it's other people from the Trump administration, then like no. If it's stock standard Republicans, then yes. That's my answer.
yeah, I think it would help him. Actually, I think of interest. I figured you might bring up Vivek, but I think he's going to be running for governor of Ohio. There's been a lot of talk about that. As that seat, I believe, is opening up in 26. But now, Colton, try not to cringe whenever I say this.
Hmm.
And yes, this is cringe. But the next topic we've got to go into is dudes for Kamala.
Oh, that's what we're talking about.
That's the next one.
Yeah, it's just fake and gay. All right, next. Move on. Next topic. There's no need to
Dude,
even talk about it.
dude, no, 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 no.
What do you want to just make jokes about it for like 5 minutes? Like
No,
it's there's
no.
nothing. It's nothing.
Dude, dude, yeah, there is something here important to campaigns. You know how much we've seen how much money campaigns spend on this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
The Harris campaign released an ad that was so bad that people thought it was satire.
I don't think it was the Harris campaign.
That was the Harris campaign.
I thought it was like some pack.
It was a pack, yes, but
Well, that's
okay, so not the Harris campaign directly,
yeah.
but still, it was one of these organizations producing an ad so bad that it probably hurt the campaign.
Yeah, and they don't even need help doing that. They're pretty good at doing that themselves.
They have proven fantastic at doing that themselves. They're now outsourcing harming their campaign.
Um
Uh, but like,
Anyways, so just to skip to the point of the issue of why it was made, I guess I'd rather talk about that than the cringy ad itself.
well, the one thing I want to point to in this is that I've talked to I talked to a lot of people that work in this industry on both sides, and there were Democrats that thought it was satire. There are lifelong Democrats who actively work for the Democratic Party and exclusively Democratic candidates that looked at this and said, "Oh shit, what kind of moron would do this?" And you know, certainly we this does warrant addressing the problem a bit.
Yeah, that
But
the
the
Harris
fact that
campaign has no support amongst men.
yeah, the Harris campaign is very much on track to lose Hispanic men. They are very much on track. They are definitely going to lose white men
Oh
by a
yeah.
considerable margin. And Trump is very likely to carry the largest percentage of black men of any Republican candidate since the Civil Rights Act was signed. She has absolutely no support there. But have you heard what their follow up to this is when that failed?
No.
'Cause it's funny. They are running ads on dating sites, basically implying that if you don't vote for Kamala, you won't be able to get laid.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, like this is all. Oh my god. This just reeks of desperation. This reeks of desperation behind the scenes.
Kind of like trotting out Obama and, him like scolding black men for not being in support of Kamala.
Yep, you had that. That did not sit well. I mean, this like there's a lot we can talk about on this topic. I narrowed it down to like dudes for Kamala, but they have real problems with men in general. They are losing the male vote in spectacular fashion, and I mean, it doesn't help the fact that they trotted out Lord Walls to go and try to relate to guys, and so he went pheasant hunting, and in the process, you know, he couldn't figure out how to reload a shotgun, making it look like he doesn't know what he's doing with it, and
Mm,
it you know raised a lot of eyebrows.
I'll agree with the raise a lot of eyebrows thing.
I don't think it helped them, is what I'm saying.
No.
You let's be clear. You don't pretend to be a gun person in front of gun people. They call you on your bullshit.
Yeah.
And I think that the people that they were trying to appeal to, that fell flat on its face. So, how do you think that sort of issue is going to impact the race? Do you think it has any measurable issue?
What, the gun thing or just the dudes for Kamala thing?
Just the general issue there, like the various topics we've discussed related to
Well, I mean,
dudes for Kamala
she's
and
losing
agenda.
men of almost every minority. It's catastrophic.
It is.
That's just what it is, plain and simple. Like, and their cope about it is that, well, she has tremendous support among women 18 to 35, and it's like, guess who doesn't vote? 18 to
Yeah.
35-year-olds.
Yeah. That is very much true. And the thing is that sure, she has the support of the women in that age bracket, but the men, she's not doing well amongst younger men either. Though humorously, not really in this topic, but she's actually doing well amongst seniors. Basically, she's only like the only group where she's like really strong with is like you know the oldest sections of society.
Ah.
So all in all, I think this one's important for the race. It sort of paints a picture, and we're going to have to touch on this with one of the issues later. But because it is probably one of the most significant in all of these, I think, for impact on the race. The next one up is Trump's ads, which have been running against Kamala in, I believe it's Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. I think it's those four states. And I believe they're probably in a few others as well. But these are Trump ads, literally just showing video clips of Kamala Harris saying the shit she said when she was running for president in 2019. A race in which, at her peak, she never even got any votes. She had to before votes were cast. But at her peak during that race, she never polled better than 1%. They have videos of her, saying we should provide Medicaid for all illegal immigrants. We should, provide sex change operations to felons and things of that nature. And these are just things she said that she said, oh, I don't believe. It's like, well, here you are, 5 years ago saying this. Have fun. I think they've even got one going where she said something along the lines of fracking organizations. She wants to like press charges against them, like just completely out of nowhere.
I think the more amusing angle of this is that the pack that the super pack that Elon is funding is hyper
Yeah.
targeting ads versus Muslims in areas and versus Jewish people in areas, and they're showing the exact same clips but framing it in different ways. Where it's like the for the Muslims, it's like trying to get them to like not vote at all, just like sit out this election. Where it's like showing the clips of how she's like super pro Israel, right?
Hmm.
And then the exact same like clips, but like 30 seconds later, they'll show it for the Jewish person, and it'll be like that we need to stop the genocide part, and it's from the same speech, and like they're just hyper fixating that, and it's just like 30-second ads. It's and they're
I
all on
mean
like
that.
Twitter and stuff.
I mean that's interesting. I believe it was either yesterday or earlier today. Can't remember the news station, but they did a focus group on Islamic Americans
Hmm.
to like see who they were voting for. None of them were voting for Harris. One of them said Trump, and the other three said they would definitely not vote for Harris. They did not rule out Trump, but they just said not Harris. And pair that with the fact that the mayor of the only Muslim majority city in the U.S. has endorsed Trump. I think that that has been something of a just basically it looks like the campaign against Kamala is basically just showing clips of the shit Kamala has said and letting that do the talking for them, which I guess is kind of the downside of running if you've got any kind of baggage, you know?
Hmm.
And yeah,
All right, should we move on then?
yeah, I suppose so. So next up, the CBS 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris. Now, for those of you listening, the reason why this one has drawn critique is because CBS interviewed her. A lot of the interview was made public before the show aired, but then whenever it aired on primetime, they they had taken her answers, for example, to question C, and put it as the answer to question A. She had she completely botched the interview. She basically just gave word salad after word salad, and none of it addressed any of the questions that were asked, which is sort of a running pattern. And so that the fact that that happened is now very much public knowledge, at least to the people who watch a lot of political news. And so yeah, thoughts on that one, Colt?
I didn't watch it.
You didn't watch that one?
Nope.
Yeah,
I'm over
I've
her.
seen.
I'm over listening to her talk. Anytime I have to do it, I listen to it at 2 times, 3 times speed.
Yeah, suffice to say, we've had to deal with Kamala Media Blitz, and there is only so much hyena cackling we can take. I have never seen someone so unadept at dodging questions while still making it outright, still just doing it. Even when she is asked questions that she can answer to her benefit. On a debate stage, certainly. If they bring up a topic you are not strong with, why and it's not irrelevant to a it's not really all that relevant to voters, do your own damn thing while you've got an audience. But if it's an interview and somebody's going to sit down and watch you just talk for an hour, you know, you can at least dodge them with some degree of elegance, or you can have some kind of, thing you can say. Uh, but yeah, I think the more important one of this, I don't think this will have any impact on the election, but I do think it's going to have a drastic impact on the relationship between politicians and the media. With the reason being that, was it Speaker Johnson, Republican House of Representatives, did an interview and he recorded himself giving his answers, and the news station that broadcast it was actually, chopping up what he said. And there's no way to look at his original answer versus what they made without looking at it as them trying to make him look like a buffoon. And I do think that this is going to have an impact in that I think you're going to see a lot fewer Republicans specifically do any kind of media appearances that aren't live, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, or like Trump has been doing, and I think Byron Donalds has been doing them as going on podcasts as well, like long form discussions where there's no
Yeah,
editing
yeah.
or minimal editing that's not just camera changes.
So, of this, with that CBS 60 Minutes interview, I don't think it'll have any meaningful impact on the election. Uh, I think that, if anything, you know, because Fox News has actually been talking about it, and hmm, sorry about that, just had a mechanical problem. Uh, Fox News has been talking about it, and love them or hate them, Fox News does have a higher.
Robert?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, you just cut out.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, love them or hate them, Fox News has a larger audience of independents than any of the other mainstream media organizations in the US. And I do think that I think it's going, I don't think it's going to have a meaningful impact, but I think that it will. I don't think it helped her with her. She's losing independence. She clearly went on that media blitz to try and wins back some of those independents, and I don't think it helped her.
No, and I guess that segues well onto her going on to the Fox interview, right?
Yes, the Fox interview, it does, but not done with this topic quite yet because there has been something else come of it. That being that the 60 Minutes interview was so heavily edited and so obviously to her benefit that the FEC is getting involved, the Federal Elections Commission, because it very much looks like a media organization tampering for the benefit of a candidate. Which, if they do that for one candidate, they have to do it for the other. So there is talk about that actually being like a donation of time. Make sense? That I can see something coming from that because I we've said it before. The FEC is probably the only cool branch of the federal bureaucracy. They know what they do.
hmm
But I do think that will be a big thing in the future because with Trump obviously has a bone to pick with the mainstream media, and this just fuels it further.
Yeah.
And moreover, it actually gives him some kind of legal grounds to push that if he wins. So next up, I guess we go into the Fox interview. And the Fox interview was sort of the final bit on the Kamala media blitz. And certainly she, went on, like she made her rounds. She went on Stephen Colbert. She went on The View. She appeared in a podcast with, I guess, two retired NBA players. I don't know the name of the podcast. Did something with Charlemagne the God, or and of course the who will never who can forget the Call Her Daddy podcast.
That is the most popular podcast among women.
Mm, well, for what it's worth, they've been hemorrhaging subscribers ever since.
Yeah.
Apparently not that.
Well, it
Apparently,
was number one, but it's
it was number one.
I think the main argument for them wasn't that they had her on specifically, like that a Democrat was on, is that they got involved in politics at all.
It was. A lot of people were sick and tired of politics being injected into things.
You know, and this is the famous
And
blowjob technique podcast. So like for
yeah,
them to have a presidential candidate is a bit out of scope.
well, yeah. So of course, I mean, what better way to end that than going on to Fox News
With Brett Baer of all people.
with Brett Baer. Now, I want to preempt this with a little fun fact. Fox News is not as pro-Trump as a lot of people believe it is.
Especially Brett Baer.
Yeah. Uh, Fox News, in fact, the owner of Fox News and organizations he controls were basically responsible for getting DeSantis into the race because they desperately did not want he desperately did not want Trump. Um, it's Rupert Murdoch, I believe.
Yeah.
Rupert Murdoch does not like Donald Trump. The man despises Donald Trump. Uh, like there is no love for Donald Trump at the higher end of Fox News. But they also know their audience, and so they play to it somewhat, and they aren't just going full CNN or MSNBC on him. Almost at MSDNC, because it really does seem branch of the Democratic Party, given the kind of shit you can say on MSNBC.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so Kamala goes on, and it's important to say this. She started backing out before the interview even started.
Wasn't she late already to the interview?
Uh, she showed up, was supposed to be a 30-minute interview. She showed up 5 minutes late and ended it 5 minutes early. Uh, Colton, sweet mother of God, sweet mother of God. I have seen shitty interviews from presidential candidates. I have seen, oh my God, Colton. Have you ever seen a worse fucking interview than that?
I have, it's been a while. And, recency bias, but yeah, it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't good to listen to.
It was uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah, and a lot of the defenders, the Kamala heads out there, hello. Um their main defense is that he was interrupting her constantly and all of that, and he was rude or whatever. And like,
And
sure, I guess if that's the fact that you want to see, sure, but like he was interrupting her because she was just going on a non-answer rant, and he only had 20 minutes.
yes, and he also did the same thing. I believe I know he's done it to Trump, and I know he did it to Obama. I think he did it to Trump, and I know he did the same thing to Obama because he interviewed both of them.
Mm.
But like, she did not answer a single question. She like when asked why 79% of the public thinks America is going in the wrong direction, her answer was basically because Donald Trump.
Literally, it wasn't even like me paraphrasing. She literally said, "Well, Donald Trump's been running,"
Well, yeah. Uh,
as if that has an impact.
yeah. For the, I want to say that her answer to everything was essentially Orange Man in an environment where that's not selling anymore. It's just not selling. And so I do think this has a negative impact for her on the race. I do think this one has a severe negative impact for her on the race. And the reason why I think this one has such a significant impact is because the only reason that she would go on Fox News and on Brett's show specifically is because Brett Baer has a very large number of viewers who are male and who are independent. And do you think she won anything from that disastrous fucking interview?
No,
Look, now you can say, oh, he was harsh. Okay. Even assuming all of that is right, there are ways that you can answer those questions that give you points. And she didn't provide any of those answers. Like the first question out of it, other than how many illegal migrants do you think have come in during this period, whatever, was do you think that you hold any responsibility for repealing the border executive orders that Trump had put in place? She could have said, look, I was the vice president, not the president. That's Joe Biden's decision. I don't necessarily agree with everything Joe Biden has done, but he is a friend. I respect the man, but that was not my decision. She could have said that, and that would have been a perfectly acceptable response. Instead, Orange Man bad. And she cited policies that she was trying to put into effect 3.5 years later that were completely irrelevant. So, that was a bad look.
I mean she did have her one media soundbite that like they
It
could
was,
post on their
I'm
TikTok or
talking,
whatever. No,
I'm talk what?
um, it was about like the people in prisons or whatever or migrants or something getting transgender surgery, and she deflected back to Trump, right? And then Brett Baer said, like, well, do you know how many Trump said? Like, it happened under Trump because you're deflecting under Trump. And he was like, it's zero. And then she was like, then why are we talking about it then?
Mm,
And that one thing was pretty much the only part of her thing that got posted by the other side. That was like ooh, her, look at her moment. No,
yeah, I don't think it carried any weight. I don't think that helped her among what she needed help with. I
no,
don't
it
think it.
didn't. But it's that was her one. That was the only minor win her people could find.
Yeah, and there was definitely some. You can kind of humorously, by all means, please feel free to Google this. All of you listening, look up Kamala Brett Baer interview, and everybody under the sun seemed to call it a testy interview. Now, I don't know how many people use the word testy in a day-to-day basis, but that many people referring to it as the same thing makes me think that somebody issued a press release to all of their allies. Wouldn't you agree?
Big
Right,
if true.
everybody. So yeah, that like there was a very clear concerted effort to try and make that seem better than it was. And it didn't accomplish what it needed to. So as of right now, just sort of reviewing like Kamala's whole spiel, her whole media blitz, both with her sending walls up to go pheasant hunting, sending making all of her public appearances. I think we both agree that her goal and her was to try and win independence and to try and stop hemorrhaging men.
I don't know if that was the goal, but that might have been like a side project with like a couple of the appearances.
I think it had to be the primary goal.
I
I
don't
don't
think
think there
going
is
on
any
Call Her
way.
Daddy had anything to do with that, or going on
Uh,
the NBA show had anything to do with that. I've
well, I
watched
think a
clips of
sport.
it.
I think that. I mean, watching a sports show, you're generally expecting to get a more male audience. I think she was trying to get males. I don't see a world in which that was not the goal.
I think she's just trying to, whatever base she has, trying to whip them up into a frenzy. I think that's the goal.
I would say that if she had only gone on and only gone on to Colbert and maybe gone on to Bill Maher, that I would have agreed with. But with her taking the chance of going on to Fox, the only logical reason for her to have done that, for her to have sent Walls to go and pheasant hunt, for her to have done her Dudes for Kamala ad, which, yeah, sure, PACs and campaigns don't, coordinate, but they just, coordinate under a very specific legal definition so as not to be, hit for coordinating, you know?
I don't think I don't think blaming the pheasant hunting on her. I don't think she told him to go pheasant hunting. I think it was just a photo op, and
I
Waltz
I
is just
I think
shit.
I think the campaign made that decision. And
Uh,
we're gonna get to the campaign manager on that later
and
because there is some evidence that they were responsible.
and then also, I don't think the commercial had anything. I don't think that they planned on doing that because they would have been like, "This is horrible," because everybody's reaction was, "This is horrible."
uh
I think
I'm
they
not gonna
just did
say
it.
it was. I'm not going to say that it was. I
Anyways,
actually I actually think that one was legit, but I'll get to that in a minute.
all right. So should we go on?
That yeah, that's one of the behind the less visible things. So I guess what we have to follow this one up with is the talk of Joe Rogan. Uh Kamala's campaign has said that they are planning a surprise appearance on Joe Rogan, and Trump has hinted that he is going to be appearing on Joe Rogan. And say what you will about Call Her Daddy, we all know what the real biggest podcast is.
True. It's the Goths in Rome.
Yeah, truly. But I mean,
No, really, fucking
uh,
Joe Rogan's huge.
yeah, like it's massive. And I mean, at this point, do you think Kamala will even appear on Joe Rogan?
No, she doesn't even have the time to do the full 30 minutes on Fox. You think she's going to do a 3-hour conversation with Joe Rogan? No.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that Kamala is going to avoid Joe Rogan like the plague because every single instance where she has had a chance to try and appeal to the male demographic, she's pretty much nuked it from orbit to ensure that it's just gone.
Well, even more so, I don't even think Trump's gonna go on Joe Rogan. At least until like after he wins the election. Like I don't think Trump is gonna go on Joe Rogan pre November 5th.
I think there's a chance that he will.
Well,
I
just
think,
based off of all of the other podcasts that he's been on, right?
yeah,
And they're very all of the like the podcasters have released like a day after Trump, like visited or like the day after Trump episode, right?
yeah.
They all talked about how it was very punctual. He got there at a certain time, and his campaign people were like, "You need to leave at a certain time." And Joe Rogan's podcast, he's kind of big enough to be like, "No, it's 3 hours or nothing." And Trump's campaign is not going to do 3 hours either.
I would hazard a guess Trump would do it.
He wouldn't.
I would absolutely say he would. Just, I mean, the guy, you know, still goes into UFC fights being received like, a hero. I mean, for God's sake, he went and worked in McDonald's for like half an hour or an hour today.
Yeah, that was a
And
campaign
drive
event.
through.
Like,
Yeah. But I think he would view Joe Rogan as work just because it is such a broad media appearance. I think that a candidate would have to be a fool not to, just because you are probably not going to get a larger audience of independent voters than Joe Rogan because he doesn't really delve into politics as much as most. Uh, like he goes into various topics, not knowing anything about them, just comes in complete open slate and asks whatever the hell he wants. That's sort of how Rogan operates.
I mean, I would love to see it.
I think it would be entertaining. Uh, I don't think Kamala will do it because I don't. I think that after the last, media blitz, they've sort of decided that be in front of a camera.
Um,
I think that's, let's put it like this: whenever she's the first interview they did, where it was both data,
where it was both what?
her and Walls together,
Mm-hmm.
that didn't go well. Whenever she went on to Oprah, she was not terribly well received. I mean, of course, let's say the Republicans got more clips out of that to use against her than she got benefit. Like she is not good in front of a camera. She is an awful public speaker. She is like the reverse like Bill Clinton is one of the best public speakers of all time. Love him or hate him, he is. Kamala Harris is the polar opposite of Bill Clinton. Polar opposite. She is she comes off as unlikable. Like she gets agitated really quickly, and it's not doing herself any favors to appear in public like that. I mean, sure, she can go, do a public speaking event for a small crowd where it's not televised, but I think she's so prone to mistakes that in anything where, they actually ask questions that aren't, pre-slated, that she is just completely out of her element. You know, like that's just what I'm seeing from this.
Yeah, that's not treading any new ground. But
I know,
back to
but
the Trump thing. I just thought about it. I actually think it'd be kind of boring on Joe Rogan.
really, why?
Well, half the fun of a Joe Rogan episode is seeing which topics they wind down. And if we're just gonna get the same five Trump responses about his family when Joe tries to, be personable, then like it's gonna be kind of boring.
Eh, I don't know. I really don't know. Trump is kind of a wild card, I guess, in that regard. I mean, a few weeks ago on one of the his what was it? Trump Jr. threw a party and wound up getting in trouble talking about family. and talking about his father and things of that nature.
Hang on, Robert. We need to
And
pause for a second. Need to sort out stuff with your mic.
all right, sorry about technical difficulties. Those seem to happen quite a lot. But anyway, so in regards going back to Trump's like a potential Trump appearance on, Rogan, Trump I think has proven himself to be too much of a freaking wild card to really, know for sure what he would say or hell what Joe Rogan would even ask, because I think that that could be an interesting one.
Yeah, like I said,
But
I would rather see a Trump not on the campaign trail, like a November 7th Trump after a victory, than like a November 1st Trump.
I would prefer that. Make no mistake, I would prefer that. I would prefer a non-campaign Trump or a sitting president Trump to Trump on a campaign trail.
Yeah, because Trump on the campaign trail, he likes to go back to his campaign things, you know, and like say his campaign bits, and I personally, this is just me, I'm kind of over it. Like I've heard it a lot. I'm like, all right, I've
Yeah,
ingested it.
yeah.
I've read
We
the
we, we
essay.
we've been hearing it for like 9 years.
Hmm.
We're aware, but I don't think there's a snowball's chance that if it was offered, Trump wouldn't do it. And Rogan has displayed that he is considering it more and more. So I'm assuming there are talks, and I don't think that it was a you know coincidence that both Kamala and the Trump campaign both mentioned it around the same time. I would hazard a guess that if anything, an offer was made to both of them, and that was how he was sort of trying to play both sides fairly, if you will.
Imagine if you had both on at the same time.
Oh, what a fucking
Oh,
that would be fucking hilarious.
they might get into an actual fist fight.
I don't know, but I would put money on it that if Trump was offered it, he would accept it.
Again, I'm just hoping that it's a November 7th Trump.
Uh, I don't know. I don't know what if Trump would do it between if he wins the election. I don't believe he would do it between then and becoming president. I think it would be in after he became president.
I don't know. I mean, he already is. They've been putting together the transition team if he wins, already for a while
Well,
now. So,
yes,
like, I think he'd have a little bit less to do, and he'd be
he
more
would.
free to talk.
Yes, but we'll actually get to that as well because we've got a couple bold predictions to make.
Wait, hang on. Just before we do that, who would be your dream guest for like if there was like a third person there to like keep the conversation going, and we can say it on three because I have a feeling we're gonna say the exact same answer. Are you ready?
Oh God! All right, go for it.
Three, two, one. Alex Jones.
RFK.
Oh, I don't know, man. Alex Jones on there to ask him about aliens?
That would be fucking amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me about the lizard people. God, I mean, honestly, we have to do a video on Alex Jones at some point.
Ugh.
Like it's like an uncomfortable topic, but the guy has been right so much that it's unnerving. It's weird. When he's wrong, he's very, very wrong. But when he's right, it's just uncanny.
Again, now I'm just really hoping it's a three-person episode with Alex
I,
Jones.
you know what? I've changed my mind. Alex Jones would be fucking amazing. Alex Jones, Rogan. My God.
These people are demons. Thank you for saving us.
Oh my God. Ah, I don't know. Oh, trying to think. Like it's hard to think of someone now that you bring up Jones. The only thing that I could think of, like the only other person I could even throw in that would even compare would be Jesse Ventura.
Mm,
But anyway, so Joe Rogan, I think that if he's offered it, he'll do it just because it would probably solidify him to the independent votes. Because I think, unlike Kamala, Trump can do a 3 hour interview without totally, ruining anything. And it just helps him, you know?
hmm
I don't think there is I don't think there is even with like even if it's 3 hours, I cannot think of an activity he could spend 3 hours on that would be more beneficial to his campaign than appearing on Joe Rogan, you know?
hmm
So, next up. This is one that is not quite as well known, but you have O'Keefe's little expose on Facebook, where you have an engineer with Facebook admitting on camera that, and rather proudly, that they are red listing. If you post something negative about Kamala, they are red listing you so that your messages on Facebook do not have the same visibility as, you know, something that is pro Kamala. Like the instance they cited is that if somebody says Kamala should not be president because she doesn't have children, therefore no vested interest in the future of the country, that they would, essentially not, their messages would not be visible. And that this was all intentionally built in to how they promote content to other people on Facebook. Now, do you think that's going to have any meaningful impact on the election?
Nope.
Me either. I do think it will have an impact after the election if Trump wins. I think it will have a very serious impact on the election after Trump wins. It is. I don't think it's a secret that Trump has a very, we'll call it testy, just in the spirit of other things, relationship with social media, and I think you might actually see, you know, charges pressed claiming that Facebook is not a platform, that it is a publisher. Because if they are a social media platform, they are not held responsible for what is on that platform. If they are a publisher, they are held responsible for what is on that platform. As such, they are, whether you agree with the statement or not, it's negative for Kamal or pro or negative Trump, uh, they are basically only responsible for moving things that are, in fact, illegal. Believe it or not, saying racist stuff, saying sexist stuff, anything like that is perfectly legal. Polite, no, but it is legal. And yeah, so I think that comes into play after the election because of this. Would you agree?
Nope.
You don't think that he would go hard on them for that?
No, I don't think that he's in full revenge mode. And I just from the past of everything that O'Keefe has done in the past when I've been let down when nothing has come of it, or some minor person working at a Democratic Party thing from past videos and exposés, and they just get fired and then it's swept under the rug. I think nothing's gonna come of it, just like everything that happens with O'Keefe.
Uh, I think you might see charges pressed on Zuckerberg because Zuckerberg is cited as being responsible in this.
I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not
I'm
saying
not
the
saying,
things that O'Keefe exposes are fake. I'm saying that nothing
yeah,
happens.
I don't regard O'Keefe as quite being Julian Assange. I very much trusted WikiLeaks. I am I trust O'Keefe in that the people that he finds and that say this stuff say it. I'm just not sure I trust the people who are saying it. You know, like that's my 2 cents on that really. But I don't think it'll have any impact on the election.
I'm just saying that I'd like to see results even once.
I would
Uh,
love to see some results for some of this even once.
Yeah. Other than that, though, like there's so many times you can call wolf, and there be a wolf there, and then but like nothing happens. Like the wolf is just like drinking from a stream. It's not like trying to steal you know, your sheep.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you cried wolf, and there's a wolf there, but it's wolf's not doing anything wrong in this case. You know,
Yeah.
wolves are
Yeah.
a protected species. You
Oh
can't just cry
God.
wolf anymore.
Think about the wolf's feelings.
That wolf had
All
a
right.
family.
So next up, and this one hits close to home, is the hurricanes. So I live in Appalachia, and of all the places you would expect to get hit by a hurricane, in all my life here, I never thought this. I went over the mountain yesterday into North Carolina, and on the way there are power's back up in places, but you've got power lines that are still, down by the road. How's it? I saw a house with a tree on top of it, still looking out into the woods, just because of how saturated everything got. And with the winds, trees just blew over, were uprooted. Just looking through the woods, probably 1 in 5 to 1 in 10 tree sort of looks like it's, just blown over on its side. Along the road, you basically see wonderful firewood making material where trees have been cut to get them off the roads. And so Appalachia's been hit pretty hard. You know what the difference between Appalachia and Appalachia is?
Mm-mm.
Appalachia is what you call it if you're from there.
Oh, relatable.
Yeah, being from Nevada. So
Oh,
during all of this, there's been a lot of claims regarding FEMA. There have been a lot of, there's always all kinds of bullshit. I mean, this is a region where there is a deep distrust of outsiders, and rightfully so. They generally ruin things. But nonetheless, uh, both Trump and both the Trump campaign and the Kamala campaign have, both been trying to win over voters in relation to their actions in the area here and in Florida. And just have you noticed anything in their reactions that are going to help or hurt them?
no. I feel like if people were already partisan, they're just gonna make it now a partisan issue. I haven't really noticed
Uh,
anything.
there are two areas. I think there are a few things just being from here that I think will impact some stuff. First off, is that FEMA is kind of proving themselves to be typical government employees.
Mhm.
For example, on the news the other day, you had a video of FEMA employees cutting a tree that had fallen into a home.
Oh, yeah, and they're,
Now,
like, doing, like, the line.
they were doing a fucking line instead of moving a truck right up next to it, and like one person cut, one person throw a log in. They
Well,
were
you know
using they were using 14 people to do a two-person job. So government employees, uh, which is really stupid. Um, Now, it is no secret that this region of the country is very, very red. Uh, so I don't think that there was any chance of some kind of response helping Kamala here. I do think she hurt herself though, because she got sort of a smackdown from both Ron DeSantis and Joe Biden in relation to Florida. In that she was talking about how she'd been reaching out to DeSantis and how he wasn't returning her calls and how she needed to be kept, up to date on this information. When the reality is she's the VP, she doesn't have any real thing to do in this. And Biden and DeSantis both confirmed they were in contact with each other. I think the only thing that I don't think it really impacts the election at all. But whenever the hurricane did hit Florida, Trump basically opened up space and put bunks up in Mar-Lago to help line workers, to give them a place to stay while they were making repairs.
Mhm.
But I don't think there was ever any risk of Trump losing Florida. I mean, it might play some minor effects in down ballot races, depending on who he endorses, which is presumably the Republican. But I don't think there's going to be much there. I now I think we even talked about this the other day. I did expect originally for this to have a positive impact for Kamala and negative impact for Trump, which I guess go hand in hand in this. In that, I expected the population in Western North Carolina to not really have the same access to voting, just because roads are gone. But that's not actually panning out as much as I thought. So I think this is sort of a net neutral thing. I don't think it's really helping, or I don't think it will meaningfully help or hurt any candidate.
Mhm.
Agreed?
Yeah.
Do you agree? All right. Next up, the Al Smith dinner. That was funny as hell. Uh, I'm assuming you've seen the clips.
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about this, you know my feelings.
Mm, yeah, I uh, I don't think that it. Uh, I don't think it helped Kamala.
Definitely not. I mean, Catholics are
She,
21% of the voting bloc.
yeah, she completely skipped it, and she recorded a video which was just kind of insulting the Catholics. Uh,
I mean, were we also gonna bring up the, other thing she did it kind of insulting religion?
yeah, we'll get to that. We will
Okay.
get to that.
I just wasn't aware if you were aware of it.
Oh, I'm aware. That's actually our next topic.
Oh, okay.
uh, oh Lord. But the Al Smith dinner, I don't think it's going to help. I think to some extent it sort of validated. I think it will help. I think it helps solidify that the men who support Trump probably aren't going to switch over to voting for Kamala. I will say that. But the fact that he got up and was actually, what was it he said? Something along the lines of, it's customary for, a candidate to come up here and make some denigrating jokes about themselves. But I don't really feel a need to take shots at myself because there's already people doing that for me. So, making light of assassination attempts,
Mhm.
credit where it's due. Uh, that takes the ability to make light of that is impressive. And yeah, I the fact that Kamala Harris missed an event with wealthy New York City Catholics and Jews who are basically the bankrollers of the Democratic Party on the East Coast is pretty telling.
Yeah, I just don't like what else was she doing at the time?
Wonderful question. Wonderful question.
Like what else are you doing?
These are literally your people. You have a room full of New York Catholics and New York Jews that are very wealthy. These are your big donors. Like 90% of this room hates Donald Trump. And this is your dream audience. And honestly, this is so bad that, like, this I think is telling more than anything about how poorly her media blitz went and just how bad she is as a public speaker. Do you agree?
I don't think it's that. I think just her campaign is inept.
I think she is that bad of a public speaker at this point. Like, I don't see any way around it.
So you think she personally vetoed going to this?
I think that her campaign vetoed going to it. And I think that it was vetoed because every time she opens her mouth, she hurts her odds. I think it was vetoed for good reason. That's my thought, at least.
Hmm.
Comments?
I mean, sure. It was just
I mean,
conjecture.
I mean, it's not entirely conjecture. We're going to be getting to it, but there is, you know, some degree of validity being posed here. All right, so Colton, go ahead and talk about the other instance of snubbing religion
Well,
because that one is that one is bad.
I think this one is markedly worse than the other one.
Oh, it is markedly worse.
Um, so there was a rally. I do not know where. I did not look that up, but um, and they were talking about abortion, obviously. Excuse me, and there were two gentlemen that were, religious young men.
Yeah,
And at the end of the abortion thing, they just shouted, "Jesus is Lord" or "Jesus is King" or something, right? I think it's "Jesus is Lord," right?
something like that. Yes.
And she hastily replied, without need of a teleprompter, because this is her real self. She said, "I think you're at the wrong rally."
Yep. She also said something along the lines of, "That is America's past. That has nothing to do with who we are now."
I didn't know that part. I just saw the 12-second clip.
Yeah. Um. So let's think about the traditional Democratic voting base these days. You have Hispanics, and last time I checked, they're very religious.
Very Catholic too.
You also have Black people who are typically Very religious.
And even if they're not religious, they're kind of culturally religious, where they're like they don't respect people that, denigrate God.
Yeah. Uh, like again, going back to what I said, Kamala Harris opens her mouth, she hurts her campaign. I mean, prove me wrong.
Can't. As much as I don't want to be that general, I can't.
I know. It's because I'm right. Um, she is an awful, awful public speaker. Like, she does not know how to play to a crowd. She The only rallies she's had that have gotten any kind of, viewership are ones where she's brought in celebrities to perform.
I'll actually push back against that first part of the sentence you said a little bit. I
All right,
think
go
she
for it.
plays too much to the crowd directly in front of her rather than the general public crowd because everything is recorded.
Uh,
And like the changing her accent depending on who she's speaking in front of, you know, um
yes.
knowing. Go
Hillary
ahead.
did the same thing.
Yeah.
Hillary did the same thing.
I think liberals call it code switching.
Yes. And I don't even know if it's, playing to the crowd she's in front of. I think she's only able to play to progressives. I literally think she is only able to play to progressives.
I didn't say she was good at it. I just said that's what she tries to do.
Yeah. It's so bad that I can't even say that she's doing it.
I mean, obviously she's doing it because she changes how she talks, and then,
Well, she
you know,
changed with how like she changes accent, but she doesn't really change what she's saying.
well,
And
it's hard to change what you're saying when you're not saying anything.
yeah, I actually think that's the appeal of Trump. He doesn't really change. He just, him.
Hmm.
I think there's a certain degree of appreciation amongst voters for a candidate who maybe they don't agree with on a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of things that a lot of people disagree with, even that intend to vote for him. But you know, he's just saying what's on his mind. Uh, and I suppose the next one, which did you have a presidential candidate working at a McDonald's 2 weeks before an election on your bingo card for this year?
No,
I This is where we are now, Colton. This is where we are. Uh, but yeah, I don't know if this will help his campaign. I think it's funny. I think it'll make social media and get his name out there more, and people will be talking about it.
I mean I don't think it's fun. Like nothing really funny happened in the video.
Yeah, but I think it's more geared at, like Kamala sort of being detached from, you know, like she claims to be like, Lord, what's the line she keeps saying? I was raised in a middle class family.
Hmm.
I think it's sort of, a counter to that. Like, look, she's never done anything like this in her life. Because what it was early on in her campaign, she claimed that she had worked at McDonald's as a kid. McDonald's is now openly saying no, that she never has.
Honestly, the only takeaway I came away with from that video is that that kid that trained him how to use the fryer should probably be a manager if he's not already. He's a great trainer.
Yeah. I don't know. I've never worked fast food, so I don't
I
know.
did.
Oh, that's right. You did when you were younger. Oh, to be young again, Colton.
Honestly, just the way the food prices are, I kind of miss it just because I could get free food.
Yeah. Well,
Remember, everybody, for the low, low price of driving your friend to work, your friend is no longer a loser that works at fast food. Your friend is a valuable resource of free dinner.
yes, indeed.
This is the takeaway.
Yeah. So that appears to be most of the visible public stuff out of the way. But there are a couple things behind the scenes that we sort of have to discuss before we go into a prediction. And the first of those is a while back, we talked about how, the Republican Party was going to get new leadership as a national party. Boy, is that playing out well.
Hmm.
Um, Nevada, your your home state right now is basically like ground zero as a display of just how effective the new Republican leadership is. Not in the state, God no, the Nevada Republican Party is a joke, but federally,
Hmm.
God knows that the Nevada Republican Party
They need
couldn't get
God.
its head out of its own ass. They need something. They need something. But they're not Arizona. Don't get me wrong. Arizona, you still singularly have the esteem of having the worst, probably state party of any. The Arizona State Republican Party is probably the worst state party of any party. Dare I say, worst political party globally. It has been that bad. Uh, I don't know if it is. Supposedly, it is getting fixed, but you know, who knows? It's really anybody's guess. I mean, at least the Massachusetts GOP just tends to enjoy being in a state of civil war and not doing anything at all, as opposed to actively harming their own chances, which I find kind of humorous.
Yeah, I like to compare the uh the Nevada state GOP is a steaming pile of cow shit. Bullshit, if you will.
Yes.
But in contrast, the Arizona GOP is a steaming pile of horse shit.
Mm.
They have different
You know,
textures, but same smell, same flavor.
yeah, the Nevada Republican Party, it's not as bad. The Nevada Republican Party is not as bad as Arizona. Like Arizona actively harms it. Uh, the Nevada GOP basically is just. I don't think they're competent enough to either help or benefit.
I think they're a little bit like they're a little bit of
They're-
harm. They're not as much harm.
uh, Yeah. Meanwhile, Massachusetts gets a ton of money, but even the data that they curate, they can't even agree to give it to candidates because they're in such an sort of an open civil war internally between your Trumpian populists and your Bush conservatives, if you will,
Hmm.
that it's like they don't do anything, and somehow that's more beneficial. They neglect everything. Uh, let's see. So yeah, in regards to that, and why I highlight it is because, believe it or not, on the first day of early voting in the state of Nevada, Clark County had more Republicans turn out to vote early than Democrats by a margin of. They had 150% more Republicans than Democrats turn out for early voting. That's not something I was expecting. You don't see that.
No, like that's pretty remarkable numbers.
Meanwhile, going back to what I was saying about North Carolina and how I thought that would have a negative impact and how that was going to be negatively impacting it, massive early turnout in Western North Carolina. People without power, and by virtue of that, not having access to, functioning gas pumps, somehow got to polling places to vote early.
Maybe it's because they have nothing else to do.
It might be. I mean, you might be onto something. So so what might have been a negative might be turning out to be a positive from the hurricanes for Trump. Well, what I originally thought would be a negative for Trump might be turning out to be a positive, if those numbers hold. Meanwhile, in Georgia, the highest number of well, the highest rates of early voting are all in counties that are very much skewed Republican. You are seeing a much larger push in early votes for from Republicans in Georgia, which is impressive. And it's not so much, and certainly there is an increase, but you're also seeing that paired with a decrease in Democrats, which that doesn't bode well. That doesn't bode well for the Harris campaign.
Well,
And the thing is,
oh,
we're
God.
seeing this in Pennsylvania. We are seeing this everywhere where early voting has started. And it seems to be just straight up across the board. They're going back to earlier, whenever we did some of our first videos, we talked about enthusiasm. This is what that enthusiasm translates into. Is those are votes that are already cast, where if on election day somebody can't get there, it doesn't matter. They've already voted. You know,
Mhm. And regarding
that's the
the
benefit.
North Carolina thing, I think as
Hmm.
well that, with like not having access to like recreational activities, right?
Hmm.
And like maybe I don't know, I haven't seen videos, I'm just guessing right now, but like maybe those polling like spots are in the same places where people can pick up like supplies and stuff. And with a heightened sense of community, that might already be on people's minds, so they just get it out of the way while they're picking up something, you know?
That's true. That is also quite true. Um, so I don't know the details of it. I'm not making my way into some of those areas to see it. But you are right. There is something going on that is making that area very active in voting right now, disproportionately so.
Are you sure we
Like,
can't send you there for a on the field action report?
uh, yeah, that would be fun. Go to all my old haunts and see it all, utterly destroyed.
What do you mean? You're pretty personable. You could do some interviews.
Yeah, I might have to do that. But moving along, so right now in the early voting, you're seeing a lot of advantages for Republicans. You are, if you still see the same trends hold throughout the rest of early voting, this is disastrous for the Democrats. And yeah, but I think that's just a virtue of having new leadership in the Republican Party that seems to actively, be trying to get people elected as opposed to spending, hundreds of thousands of dollars on flower arrangements.
Hmm.
Yeah. So next up, going back to what we were going on earlier about all the shit going on in, Kamala's media blitz. You have Kamala's campaign manager. There have been a number of people within Kamala's campaign who have indicated that her campaign manager has, well, not fired, has received the verbal lashing of the century. Apparently, Harris has blamed her for, you know, the Fox interview, telling her to go on Fox, for all of the advice that she has been given, clearly indicating that all is not well in that campaign. And to that, there I think there's a reason why her campaign has been making so many bad decisions. I think we touched on this in some earlier videos. But are you familiar with the turnover rate of Harris's employees since she's been VP?
No,
Of the people she started with, less than 10% of them are still there.
maybe the
She has a
problem's her.
massive, huh?
Maybe the problem's her.
Yeah, that's generally what is said. And again, this is just our internal business side of, the things you talk about with staffers, the things you talk about with consultants. Apparently, she is not easy to work for. She, if something goes wrong, it's somebody else's fault. You know,
Hmm.
that is just apparently a function of being working in Kamala land.
I was gonna call it Kamala Land too.
Yeah,
Kind of rolls off the tongue.
it does. And so you don't exactly have a very enthusiastic staff, from my understanding. And to be fair, you've not got the best candidate in the world. You've got what appears to be a vice presidential candidate that was very far down on the list. You have when you've got that kind of reputation in this industry, it can be hard to get people to work for you. The job is stressful, and you're not going to work for somebody in an already stressful job that is going to make it even worse. So, yeah, that is, it seems like a lot of these poor decisions, you can blame it on the fact that she's not getting the best advice. You can blame it on that. Uh, what appears to be the case, though, is that she's not getting the best advice because she's not able to get actually the best staff for the situation. As what's his name, Shapiro in Pennsylvania?
Hmm.
I cannot imagine anybody sane at this point. Just seeing what I have now, I cannot imagine anybody sane having said she should have gone with Walsh instead of Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania.
I think that they can't with the current political climate and who they need to win. I don't think they can go with a Jewish person.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm sure they asked, and he was probably like, because
He was
Josh
one of the people
Shapiro.
that
Oh god,
he was one of the people that was actually contending for it.
yeah, and like I don't know, like it'd be like it. Why would you want to send your political career down in flames?
I mean, and I think we say that with all respect. This is just like her campaign has been one disaster after another. You know, there's I don't know how else to put it.
Robert, I'm not gonna
What?
say his name, but the one guy that we know who is the Fail Upwards McGee. Imagine an entire campaign only filled with him.
Oh God. Oh God.
Yeah, I feel
There, there,
bad for
there,
those
there, there,
people.
there, there are things that there are names we can't mention. Um, we've met a lot of decent people in our political career, and this guy is one of them. He's a legitimately nice guy, but imagine somebody with relatively low functioning autism failing their way upwards.
Well, high functioning autism.
You say high func. All right. Uh, high functioning autism, but with awful. They have to enforce the awful people skills paired with emotional immaturity. Imagine that running a highly stressful campaign. That's I think what you're alluding to.
Well, I mean, I don't think you have to imagine it. I think we've seen that, right?
We've experienced. I've not seen it running a campaign. I have seen it running projects. And yes, now that you mention it, that's a wonderful analogy. I don't want to go into it too much more on that one. Nice guy, legitimately nice guy, but the kind of figure that you only see get to their position. They're the post turtle, call them post turtle. They certainly didn't get there, because they belong there. They just sort of got placed there because they didn't ask too many questions, you know,
Yeah.
or by accident. But yeah, that that I can kind of see that. I can kind of see that being the case with the Harris campaign currently, as this is disastrous. This is utterly disastrous. So, Colt, it's about time to make a prediction.
Hmm.
Now, right now, Nate Silver, Democratic pollster, regarded as being fairly accurate, has indicated that the most likely outcome of this election is Trump with an electoral win at 312 votes, electoral votes. So, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's him winning every swing state, right?
That's him winning every swing state.
Yeah, I mean,
Now,
right as of right now, polling shows that he is winning every swing state, and that he also tends to kind of overperform his polls. I don't know if the polling has corrected for that yet, or if they're still under, rating Trump, but at the moment, he is winning every swing state in the polls. So I'm just gonna go with that. That I would probably agree with that 312 number.
I'm inclined to agree with 312 at least, but there are two things I have to point out because I think there are another two states that are well within Trump's margin, given how much he overperforms polls. And I'll go into the polls a little bit on this. First off, at this point, you are seeing polls of likely voters. And likely voter is someone who is likely to vote. They are someone who has voted in, the last two elections. And so a lot of those diehard Trump supporters that were there in 2016 and voted for him in 2020 are now appearing as likely voters. Those ones who, just appear out of nowhere. But I want to throw out a couple other little tidbits in this. Right now, among, whenever you go to Real Clear polling and look at the various polls that are up, you have most of the polls that are there are generally liberal skewing polls, which that shouldn't be a surprise. What was it in our episode on when we talked about, the errors in polling in 2020? Something like, you know, 24 states were off by more than double the margin of error in their final predictions on states, with all of it being over predicting Biden. Trump is since he entered politics, polls have just been, wild guesses, but he does tend to overperform them. And it isn't like they're getting better at it. But last in the last presidential cycle, you saw far more people vote for Trump than voted for him in 2016. So that seems to indicate that you had another group of new voters that came into the mix. That paired with some fairly notable efforts by Republicans to register new voters make me think that I don't think they're I don't think the polls are under predicting him as much as they did in 2020, but I do think they're under predicting him. Every single time that I've thought that polls were right in the past, they generally have. Let's just say Trump has had a way of surprising me a lot, if that makes sense, Cole.
Hmm.
So there are two other states that I have to mention: Virginia and Minnesota. And I have to preempt this with a one poll from a pollster known as Atlas Intel. While popular vote does not decide American elections, we have an electoral system. The popular vote does have some patterns that you follow. Because Democrats tend to hold sway in much higher populated states, a Democrat who wins the popular vote by 4 points only has about a 50% chance of winning an election. And about the time they're only leading it by two, they basically don't have much chance at all. It's very narrow. It's possible, certainly, but it's unlikely. Meanwhile, Atlas Intel, going back to them, was damn near spot on with the midterms in 22. I believe they were off by 0.2% in 2022, and they were off by 0.3% in 2020. That's pretty good for a pollster. That's pretty damn good. Right now, the reason why I think these two states are significant is because right now they have Trump winning the popular vote with 51%. And additionally, most of the other pollsters that are currently still being taken into the aggregate, and this goes for Fox News's poll as well. Fox News the pollster they use, is not exactly a right-leaning pollster like a lot of people think it is. Uh, it's a company run by a staunchly, never Trump Republican and a Democrat. But a lot of these polls are still taken using, the expected voter breakdown of an environment in which the people that identify as Democrats are, 3 percentage points higher than Republicans. And the reality is that right now we are in a Republican plus one environment. So, with that being said, I do personally think, just given trends we are seeing, that Trump will win either Virginia or Minnesota. I think it's more likely to be Virginia. But in both of these states, Harris is still polling under 50%. Trump has a propensity to overperform, particularly in Minnesota. particularly in Minnesota. The only reason I'm not so confident there is because Walz is the governor. But I think that the final total right now, just with what I've seen, what I'm seeing in front of me, is that Trump will wind up with either 322 or 325 electoral votes. And yeah, I didn't see that coming. I was not expecting that at all. But in both of those states, the polling is again mostly done by left leaning pollsters. So, of those, the most accurate that I typically see is Rasmussen. People claim that Rasmussen is a right leaning poll. To an extent, they are right in that, but they're also much more closer to accurate than most of the other pollsters have proven since the Trump era began. And so I think those two states are in play. I've heard people make cases for New Mexico. I'm not really seeing that at this point. I'm not going to rule it out. But I don't think he has a shot in New Hampshire. I don't think that that is there. What are your thoughts, Colt?
I'm gonna stick with my 312.
You're going to stick with 312. That I think 312 is a safe bet. I think 312 is a safe bet.
I mean,
Um,
I would even be comfortable going a little bit lower and saying that he might lose like one or two of those swing states.
I think I think if he's going to lose one of them, I originally thought it would be North Carolina. Uh, I mean, I might be able to see him losing Arizona or like Wisconsin is close, but he always like they always under poll him in Wisconsin for some reason. I I that one he always overperforms in, and so that's why I don't know if this will be my prediction on election day, but right now this is my prediction. And so now I'm going to ask you, I think, what might be the two most important questions in all of this. What happens if Donald Trump wins?
And he becomes the president.
No, what happens in the immediate aftermath?
Riots? I mean, what else do you expect? I don't know. Or
Yeah,
protests, I guess.
I expect I expect the single biggest emotional breakdown of all time.
I mean, all I know is that for election night, I am probably going to be watching the Young Turks.
Oh, I'm going to watch MSNBC.
Yeah, I'm over Rachel Maddow's reactions. I want to see at least four or five people going off the deep end if Trump wins.
Yeah,
This is a big fucking, we're really we're really going out on a ledge here.
yeah. Like at this point, uh, look, the environment is very favorable for Trump. Like it's been favorable since the beginning.
I mean,
And Kamala has done herself no real favors. She's basically, whenever she entered, she was basically propped up by the media. It was humorous. The only time when she was going up in the polls was when she was refusing to do interviews, uh, which is an accurate statement. Uh, but yeah, I do think that there will be. I think there will be riots. I think you will see. I mean, it's hard to say the word socialist, democratic or otherwise, without putting the word militant in front of it. So you will probably see some riots if he wins. What do you think happens if Kamala wins?
sadness.
Yeah, kind of. I don't really. see that happening. Though there is one thing that I do think will happen because I think Trump has learned a valuable lesson from 2016. And this is just another behind the scenes thing. Um, and I think this goes back to what we were talking about the Republican Party being competent now. For example, in 2016, after the election, Trump questioned the validity, whether you believe it or not. He brought forward lawsuits related to certain changes that were made in how states conducted their elections. And many of those were done by state executive order in the last minute. And it's fair to challenge those kinds of things. That is perfectly within reason. The catch is that you have to challenge them before the election. You have to have filed those charges before the election. You can't file them after. So I suspect that in the lead up to this, you are going to see anything that is done to change election policy or that has been done that skirts with what the governors are and are not allowed to do, or what state house legislatures are and are not allowed to do, will have cases filed against them. So I think if Trump loses, you are still going to see some kind of litigation. What comes of that, I don't know. But I do think that it would ultimately wind up at the Supreme Court. That's my thought. Colt,
Yep,
thoughts?
sounds about right.
So yeah, I think you will. If Kamala wins, I think you're going to see, you know, a number of, you know, you're going to have the results challenged in a court because I think that Trump figured out how to actually do that, which, whether you agree with what the governors did in 2020 was right or wrong in some of those cases, that's that's personal opinion. Not my place to tell you what to think. If But his ability to challenge it has to be done just before the election results are brought in. He just has to have, like, his lawyers file those charges, and it has to be in motion. So that's a thing that could happen. But those, I think, are the two most likely outcomes, other than who is going to be the next president. So, Colton, any other questions, comments, concerns, prayer requests?
Hmm. Nope, I'm pretty good. What about you?
Well, I believe that's it. So, to you poor bastards still listening, thank you for doing so. Please like and subscribe if you've enjoyed, us rambling on for God knows how long. And, share us with your friends, family, enemies if you want us to bore them to death. And we hope you learned something today. So take care, everyone. And we hope to see you next time.
Have a good one.